This is the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast. I'm Andrew Savage.
I'm Nancy Richards.
And today we have a really special guest with us. We have Raj Goyle, who is running for the Democratic nomination for New York State Comptroller. Welcome to the podcast.
Andrew, Nancy, thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Excellent. So I was talking to some of your comms folks earlier today, and I think the best place to start here is like what the New York State Comptroller does, because I don't think a lot of people know like what it does or that there's an active primary happening for it, uh,
Right.
and who's in the seat currently.
So, again, thank you so much for having me. Very excited to be here. And I like to say that this is a race for the most powerful office you've never heard of. And so that is the New York State Comptroller. So before I talk about what's going on in the office now, I would love to just talk to you about why I'm running and a little bit about
Absolutely.
myself. So, the state comptroller runs a $300 billion pension fund for about a little over a million New York State retirees, and is
That's
the
gonna be
state
me.
and is the state investigative state auditor. It's like a part investigator, part investor. And this office is, one of the things I like to say is that Donald Trump invents powers he doesn't even have, while Democrats don't use the powers we do have. And so one of the things that makes my blood boil the most in this crisis that we're in this emergency moment we're in this war that we're in which our president is declaring an authoritarian regime against blue states, especially New York, and we have this affordability crisis that's choking Staten Island, that's choking New York City, that's choking New York State. We need an all hands on deck moment. We need fighters and not folders. And we need every molecule of power that we have politically and governmentally to fight these twin crises. And the current state comptroller is completely asleep at the switch. He's the ultimate do nothing Democrat who was originally appointed by an insider cabal, who has never been primaried. And so that's the current state of play. And I think for your listeners who are probably looking for change and are looking for things to not rile things up just for the sake of riling things up, but to fight and produce results for the people of New York, then I'm your guy, Raj Goyle.
Thank you. As far as I'm a New York City retired teacher. I still work
Thank you for your
part-time.
service.
Thank you. And I'm back in service a little bit, but one of the beauties about our is how great our pension fund is, and you know, it it's safe, it's secure, and it grows. And it supplies so many city employees with something that most people never see in their lifetime. I do a joke, I do a stand-up joke where the last day that I taught, I told my students, I go, I'm going to teach you a word today that you'll never see in your lifetime. It's called pension.
Yeah.
And I said, when your home and your family's trashing unions at the dinner table, I go, I want you to think of Miss Richards. I said, because when she leaves here, I go, she's going to get a paycheck for the rest of her life. So,
Well, I'm the son-in-law of two 30-year retired public school teachers, Orange County, Chester School District. My wife, Monica Rora, was raised lifelong New Yorker and raised in Orange County, Warwick, then Middletown. And so I know very well. In fact, just the other day, I had to handle the direct deposit for my mother-in-law to get an address changed and to do some paperwork. So, she was not in the city. And so you were part of the city teachers pension fund. My
yeah.
in-laws are part of the state teachers fund. Actually, the New York State Common Retirement Fund, which the New York State Comptroller runs, is actually a different,
Oh, the
is
city, yeah.
basically state employees. Think about like park rangers and people who work for uh, the tax department and that sort of thing. And so that pension, Nancy, which is so obviously vitally important, is the North Star of this office, which is to make sure that it is safe and secure. Unfortunately, under our current comptroller, we have actually we've underperformed the city pension fund, underperformed the market. So there really needs to be an accountability moment now where not only is the state pension fund, our campaign broke the story last week that Tom Dinapoli is invested in Palantir. And so he has not
Really?
only invested $180 million, he then doubled down and moved it to a $480 million position. And then when confronted with it, keeps frankly misrepresenting the truth, claiming that a third party investor through an index fund made the decision to buy when it was his fund that actively bought the position and doubled up on it. And so not only is the pension fund not performing as well as it should, and when I'm running it, we will put more money in pensioners' pockets, it's frankly violating our values. And Tom DiNapoli is standing behind that. I've also called for divesting the pension fund from fossil fuels. I was the first candidate to say that and be consistent throughout the race on that. And so there's many things that we should be doing far better in the pension fund and with that office than we are right now.
And
Wow, I didn't know.
yeah, and yeah, for our listeners, Palantir is, one of the most encroaching surveillance companies that are doing things like facial recognition software, and they are providing services to federal government agencies like ICE, which you can imagine what they're
Oh,
doing with it.
yeah, so much out there. And, one of the videos we did had over 100,000 views talking about explaining Palantir. And now there's huge number of stories about this. And Palantir is the tech partner in ISIS's reign of terror. And we see they've actually been very active overseas and targeting things in Palestine and in Gaza. Palantir has their CEO, Alex Karp, has said, many, many things and acted very, very strangely. Palantir has now become, I think, unequivocally a watchword and almost a bogey for not only is it incredibly destructive as a software company. They use data mining to do pattern recognition, and then they comb through, say, all our healthcare data to then try to target an undocumented immigrant, and perhaps that person isn't even undocumented. They're of course treating people who are here legally. They've treated citizens obviously poorly. They've murdered citizens. So all of this is part of this Palantir partnership with ICE and the Trump government and the Trump administration continues to funnel billions of dollars to Palantir's way. And Palantir just released a record earnings report because they continue to feed at the trough while they're terrorizing Americans.
I bought
Absolutely.
Palantir. I actually I saw him on Bill Maher a few years ago, and he was very impressive in the chair. Like this is before his
Before he went MAGA. Yeah.
yeah, I guess so. And I was like, oh, this I he just seemed like an innovator. So I purchased, like 10 shares of his stock. It was cheap and and I started to make a little money off of it. And then
Yeah.
when I started to learn about what was going on, I sold it. Even if even if the stock was rising, I was like, I don't want to be involved making money in this. So
Well, I think Nancy, I mean, that you put your finger on it, which is a lot of people ask, and I'll sort of maybe steal a question that you may be throwing my way, which is one I get all the time, which is a very fair question, which is, wait a second, you have a fiduciary duty as the state comptroller to invest the pension fund. So if it makes money, isn't that a good thing? And the answer, of course, is of course making money is a good thing in the pension fund, and that is to be the responsible steward of the pension fund. At the same time, as your behavior showed, Nancy, we don't want to make money while we forsake our values. There are plenty of companies out there that are high growth companies that are good, solid with good basic fundamentals that we should invest in over companies that violate our values. And again, Tom DiNapoli, in fact, I believe it's tomorrow night, is hosting a fundraiser in Syracuse with a MAGA aligned lobbyist who hosted Tom Homan, the border czar, the ICE guy. And that's the kind of business as usual that I think, frankly, progressive insurgent Democrats are sick and tired of. I think that's what powered the Zoran movement. That's what powers a lot of primary challenges across this city, this state, this country. And I'm very excited to be in the vanguard of that.
good.
Absolutely. And I want to give our listeners a chance to get to know you better and your background, because I was reading a little bit today about your history as an elected official in
Yeah,
Kansas. And it was interesting because a lot of the positions you took as a state representative, one might consider more moderate, but now you are somebody who is kind of running to the left of Tom DiNapoli and some of the other candidates. And so, explain a little bit about your background and as an elected
sure.
official, and what you've done here in New York.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. So my story is a very New York story, in fact. So my mom and dad left India they had a 3-year-old, my older brother, and they ended up in Rochester. They did all their medical training up there, and then was raised in a working class town in the Midwest in Wichita, Kansas. And what's really, they taught me so much about service and education and values. And, I think my father probably gave away more medical care than he was actually probably even compensated for. Although, they lived the American dream and are, of course, successful. And what's really interesting is I have a wife who I mentioned. We have two teenage daughters, so you can pray for me now. And so a
They're
16-year-old and a 13-year-old.
I'm a
teenage
high school
daughters.
teacher. I'm a high
Yeah,
school teacher, so I am praying.
yeah,
I have a
yeah.
joke. I go, teenage girls are so evil. I mean, inquisitive.
Exactly. Yeah, 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 yeah. Ours are wonderful. They really are. We don't have we luckily for now, knock on wood, don't have the slam doors or anything like that. But I will say this, and one thing that's really important just on that note is I helped get our cell phone ban through. So you two as teachers, I founded Phone Free New York. You may have read about that, and I worked very closely with the teachers union and Governor Hochul last year, and of course the
Oh,
legislature
cool.
passed that, and that's a smashing success. I think you would agree. It's the nation's largest bell-to-bell phone ban. So, I saw a need. I was rooted in community on that. Worked with mental health advocates and other technology folks to say, hey, we need to put some responsible safeguards around technology. But back to your question, Andrew. So I do have an interesting history in that regard, which is I'm a civil rights lawyer. I worked at the ACLU right after 9/11. I was representing a lot of South Asian immigrants who were facing persecution by the Bush administration in a program called special registration. So I was very active in the immigrant rights fights my whole life. And then in 2006, I actually went back to Wichita, won probably one of the toughest state house wins in the country for Democrats that year. I won a 2-1 Republican district, knocked
Oh,
8,000 doors, and I was a down the line pro-choice, pro-labor, pro-immigrant legislator. So, I do know my opponents when you're starting to get smeared, they that's always a good sign. That's always a good sign you're getting traction. And so what's very interesting is my opponents, both of whom are excuse me, a couple of my opponents, I think are spreading sort of some misinformation out there, and I'll just set the record straight, which is, my values haven't changed at all, and in fact, my votes and my activity in Kansas were to be rock hard progressive, in a very, very difficult environment. So I'll give you a great example, which is we have to fight for immigrant rights, and in Kansas, they were trying to all but do away with legal immigration to the extent they could. They wanted to have a driver's license for, frankly, they wanted to make sure you had to have a passport just to get a driver's license. So we made sure that actually undocumented immigrants could still get a driver's license. And so, in so doing, we had to actually beat back bad stuff. I was endorsed by Planned Parenthood in my 2010 election. I sat on the Planned Parenthood board here in New York. And so the real story is actually the through line and the consistency of progressive values. So I've always been a populist, always been a progressive, and so the issues I'm running on now are very, very natural and an extension. There's no reason to really sort of deviate or anything because it's always been consistent for me. And so some of the issues that are very important to me is electricity rates, for example. So the state comptroller is the logical watchdog for our Con Ed bills and national grid bills. And yet they keep going up and up because Tom Dinapoli doesn't do a damn thing about it. He can audit the Public Service Commission. He can propose legislation. He can create an energy accountability unit in his office. Those are all things I'll do. And of course, he says it's not his job to invest in affordable housing. That's ridiculous too. That's bullshit. He's doing it already a little bit, but he can do it vastly more. So it's not only a good investment for the pension fund to get good return on the dollars, it's the right thing to do for our pensioners.
so do you think with this platform that you'll be working a lot closer with our new mayor, uh, Bandani? So in regards to, because a lot of the affordability issues is what he's working on, and he's actually going to need state money for some of his programs.
Oh, very much. The affordability crisis is one that's obviously statewide that is choking everybody. And so I very much intend, I was proud to be a supporter of the mayor's, and I very much intend to make sure that right now, I mean, the current state comptroller was not a supporter of Mayor Mamdani, of Zoran. I think issued a very tepid, muted endorsement and is certainly, I think, not working closely with him at all. And I think on the issues where we agree, which is we need to tackle this affordability crisis. So of course, when we're talking about housing, we're talking about childcare, we're talking about junk fees. One issue that I'm very obsessed with for a long time is, you ever know those services where you can click a button to subscribe, like say Spectrum or
Yeah.
Verizon, but to cancel them, you got to call.
Oh, I
I
Yeah,
know.
mean,
or
That's a nightmare. That's an
yeah,
absolute nightmare.
I,
it's
as
a
a
map. It's I had to figure out how to cancel something is even more difficult, I found. Like,
That's right, and that's in the geeky world that's called click to cancel. So if it's click to subscribe, it should be click to cancel. And I'm very excited that Zoran has worked with Lena Khan here. She wrote a regulation about that, but I know how to
good.
solve that. This state comptroller, when I'm state comptroller, we will be able to we'll make huge progress on that because we can just say with the pension fund that we're just not going to invest in companies that don't provide click to cancel if they have click to subscribe. And that's a great example of my unique expertise. I ran a private sector business successfully. I'm the only person in this race who's done that. I've been an elected official in a very hard area, so I know how political power works. And this office is a combination of both politics and financial savvy. So, many people, I've said that I have the soul of an activist and an organizer and the mind of an entrepreneur. And that is a really good combination for how we can reform and energize this office and make it a partner to the affordability agenda to help working families.
Well, I
Sounds like
was well, I was when I was originally told about your candidacy, I was told that you raised about $3 million, in a very short span of time, and obviously you're not raising money from the same people that Dinapoli is. Dinapoli
No.
is relying clearly on MAGA aligned businesses and companies. So talk about like your fundraising success, and do you see that as kind of an extension of the Zoran wave? Because Zoran, I was just reading today in Courier News, has a 68% approval rating. Now I know he's sort of in the honeymoon period. The first thing he cuts in the city budget, he'll piss somebody off and it'll go down maybe. But what do you think about all of that? What do you take?
That was next on my list to bring up. Thanks for bringing it up. So, we did a really nice job in our first fundraising report. So we raised $2.5 million in just 3 months. And while the current incumbent raised less than $2 million in 6 months, and another competitor did less than $1 million in that 6 month period. And in fact, a couple of them resorted to raising general election money, which isn't even usable in this primary, to sort of inflate numbers, which is a common tactic, I guess, on the political press. But the main point is to your question, Andrew, which is we are exciting a grassroots movement. We had over 260 zip codes, over 30 counties in New York. We had a record amount of low dollar match money. We do have a low dollar match in the New York State system this is the first time it's being implemented statewide. So, we are very much, and I would say excitingly, putting ourselves right in the middle of the idea that we need change and an agenda that helps working families. My immigrant story, one of the reasons I'm running for this office, you asked me earlier, Andrew, is my mother's 83. I mentioned that we have this, joint family here. So my parents live on the block. My in-laws, we moved them from Orange County. Or they moved from Orange County here to this block. We sadly lost my father 3 years ago. I was his main caretaker. My father-in-law 2 years ago. Now we're down to the six of us. And but we've got the moms, and my mother asked me last summer. She's 83. At the time, she was 82. She's widowed. She's delivered 5,000 babies in this country. She's been a citizen for 45 years. She's been in this country 55 years. And she asked if she could be deported and denaturalized because of Trump's ICE.
wow.
And that's so chilling. It really just makes you, it gives you a little lump in your throat because you realize, wow, is this the America that is my
Or
America
definitely
right now.
picked up, like, questioning whether she could be picked up and detained. Like, it
It,
definitely
it,
that would be a question I would be wondering as well.
Well,
well, yes,
the standard
and
seems to be that just, to be picked up is that you're not white. That's basically the standard.
the Supreme Court has now literally authorized ICE agents to use accent and look
Yeah,
for their criteria to detain somebody, which is just shocking and awful. I've had so many friends ask me, well, if I travel abroad, can I get back in the country? And there are citizens or
yeah,
they're green card holders. In fact, there are people, you asked about my fundraising. I'm an immigrant. I'm son of immigrants, I should say, and I'm from an immigrant family. I'm the first person born in this country in my family. And so I obviously have I have countless friends, and I was a frontline ACLU lawyer. So I've been in those immigration hearings. I know about A numbers. I know my cousin was almost deported for fraudulent reasons years ago because of the inefficiencies of the immigration system. And the reality is that most people who are green card holders, for example, who can completely fully participate in American life, many of them are scared. And in fact, I've had people say, I'd love to contribute to your campaign, but I've been advised by my attorney that merely giving to a political candidate a primary for state comptroller in New York might jeopardize my immigration status.
yes, yes. I could see people being afraid of that, which is um, which is wrong, absolutely wrong. And this is not the country that we, you know,
No.
should be
And
in.
And that's why I'm fighting, Nancy. I mean, that's why I'm in this race, and I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited to talk to you. I was actually at the Indian Temple in Staten Island just a couple of weeks ago. What a lovely community there. It's very well known in the South Asian community. Again, for your listeners and for you, if you want somebody who can reform an office and yes, perform to put more money in your pockets and yes, to tackle the affordability agenda, but also to step up in this moment in which we have a crisis, a five-alarm fire. And I can't believe that Democrats in New York State, the home of Seneca Falls, the home of the New Deal, the home of Zohran Mamdani, the home of AOC, would allow this position, this very powerful position, to just have a box checking insider who has no vision and no record of actually helping you live a better life. It really would be a shame, in my view, if we let that politically powerful office sit mute like it has.
And I have one more question because I know we're running low on time,
Yeah,
but
it's 6:56. Yeah.
so we're running low on time, but I wanted to ask when I had Mark Levine on last year when he was running for city controller, and when I had Justin Brannan, who was also a candidate at the
Yeah.
time, they both talked about Trump-proofing New York City. Uh,
Yes.
and Justin Brannan talked about using the pension fund to do that. What are some of the ways that we could do that at the state level? Because Trump is going to try and fuck New York State when it comes to cutting funding and
Absolutely.
cutting projects. He's already done with that with the
Yeah.
railway. So, like, how do we Trump-proof our state from any kind of
Yeah.
cut maybe coming?
Thanks several ways. Number one, I already talked extensively about Palantir. So we know that actually it is, of course, selling stock is not is one action that Tom Dinapoli should take. It's a shame. It's an outrage that he's in it and that he keeps denying that he's in it, and that they made the active decision to invest and double down on the stock. But that action by a very prominent pension fund sends a big signal. And so if we can begin the movement to actually and have multi-state shareholder activism, I will work with other blue state pension funds. One very important point is that the red state chief financial officers are all organized. They're in an organization called the State Financial Officers Foundation. And we on the blue side have nothing in return. And I will absolutely step into that space. As I said, I've been an organizer my whole life, so that's something that we will do. So that's one way, very important way to Trump-proof the state and to use this office to do that. The second thing is this audit power. So we will then use the audit power to find any state contractor, any state agency that is supporting ICE's lawlessness and make sure that that stops. And so, and connected to that, anything that is supporting MAGA that is using our tax dollars should be exposed, and the state comptroller should be doing it. Tom DiNapoli isn't. And it's just an absolute, again, it's a shame that we are letting that power go fallow. And the last thing I will say also is, I did mention fossil fuels, and of course that is not so cleanly a Trump anti-Trump dichotomy. But Donald Trump, let's be clear, has canceled billions of dollars in renewable energy contracts here in New York, putting thousands of union jobs at bay, and so committing to a renewable energy future and being clear that the state pension fund will take billions of dollars out of the fossil fuel industry following the successful practice of the city pension fund, I think is a very, very important signal to send. And then lastly, we are a net payor to the federal government. And if Donald Trump's going to go willy-nilly, as you said, fucking around and taking away our money and canceling contracts, construct sub tunnels under the Hudson River and so on, well, then we need to talk about there's proposed legislation that we should withhold money to the federal government as well.
I've always said we should do that. I think California should, and I think definitely now Minnesota should.
Yes.
I think any state that they have encroached on with their, masked goons, or that they've cut funding to, because, like California is the fifth largest economy in the whole world, and so, good luck if they go. Good luck
Right.
without their money. I mean, so I always thought that was part of the power we ought to use, but haven't.
Yes, and another issue that you haven't asked me about, but I will bring up, which is I've had a clear stance about our foreign bond portfolio. So Tom Dinapoli has about $330 million or so in the state of Israel, and that is his largest position, and the whole rest of the world has less than $250 million. And
Right.
so what I have said, as you can tell, it's consistent with my theme and why I'm running, was let's bring that money home to New York. There's no reason to have these foreign bonds. They don't perform well. They're not good fiduciary investments. The financial common sense means let's bring this home. And then, moreover, as I said, we have values matter to New Yorkers. I've talked about Palantir. Nancy, you talked about your values and your personal divestment from Palantir. I also don't think New Yorkers' money should be funding war crimes in Gaza, and that's just an important issue. I think that is both a small percentage of the fund, but of course, it's something that I think in this day and age, people are looking for where people stand on that issue. And so,
The bold move, especially downstate in New York City. So yeah, very good.
well, I've had many people call me many names after that. I've got some text messages that I would not want to repeat to anyone, and I had people who were I thought very good friends of mine, sort of uh, make clear otherwise. And of course, I've had potential supporters, both through the campaign and financially and otherwise, who have pulled away. But again, I think it's important that we have our values that are clear, and so it's very important that we have a progressive comptroller who doesn't just do that in name only, but stands up and fights. And that's why I'm running for comptroller.
I think
Absolutely.
absolutely. And then also in regards to what we're not, excuse me, investing in, but what we are, what we should be investing in. So I love what you said about all that,
Thank you.
and also some innovative ideas on what the comptroller should be focusing on. So I I I'm glad we got this opportunity to talk to you and get your message out.
Thank
Um,
you.
for the future, where can people find you on Instagram and your socials and donations and campaigning?
Yes, yes. Love that. So go to rajgoyle.com. That's RAJGOYLE.com. My Instagram handle is Raj Goyle NY. And my X handle is Raj Goyle at Raj Goyle. And I'd love to have as many inbound questions or conversations as I can. The only bummer running statewide is that I wish I could knock every door myself and have conversations with every single primary voter. Logistically, that's not possible. Maybe someday when we clone and have holograms, and that's
When is the primary for?
it's June 23rd.
Okay, so you
It's in
have.
a little less than 5 months. So, it's both a long ways away, but also around the corner.
Okay, if you want to come back a little closer to that, we'd love to have you again. So,
Well, great.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Raj Goyle. This is the Left in the Forgotten Borough podcast. I'm Andrew Savage.
and I'm Nancy Richards, and We want to thank our guest tonight, Raj Goyle, who is running for state controller.
Thanks so much for having me. Honored to be here.